Hey everyone, this is Robert Jackson. Thank you for watching the podcast. And yeah, I know it's been a while since I've done one of these. So today, hope everybody's staying safe and staying cool from the heat, from the heat waves that's been going on, like literally all across the world. But regardless, we're gonna be just taking a load off and chill and just have a nice little conversation. So I have a special guest in the corner. She's done a lot of work in New York, like theater, stage, and whatnot. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Miss Carol Jacobanis. I'm hoping I
Jacobanis.
pronounced Jacobanis. Yeah, hope I pronounced your last name. Yeah,
You
it kind of
got it.
is a yeah, it kind of is a recurrent theme on this podcast where I just mispronounce people's names wrong. So I mean last names at least. So yeah, how are you doing?
I am doing well, thanks. But like you said, it's a heat wave around the world, and we're definitely feeling it here in New York.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm feeling it over here right now. So, yeah, would you like to share just, a little brief bio about yourself, like your work, and just so people could get to, with just a little icebreaker type of thing, so we could get to know you a little more about what you
Sure.
do.
Um, I am an actor who has well, I studied in England and I grew up in LA, but when I was leaving England, moved to New York, and I've been here since, and I've done quite a bit of voiceover, a bit of anime, a little bit of commercial. These days, I do a lot of audiobooks, which I love. And I've done stage and a little bit of film and a little bit of TV, and always look forward to doing more of those.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's nice to pay the bills whenever you're juggling in between all these different revenues of the performing arts. So that's really nice to know. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
it's
sorry.
fun it's fun to have so many different avenues. And even in voiceover, there are so many. Even if all you do is voiceover, there are so many different ways to work in voiceover. It's really it keeps things interesting.
Yeah, I agree. So I know that specifically in VO, like the industry had, I mean, it's always changing, especially since, when we first went into the new, I guess the new normal, so to speak, in
Yeah.
2020 for like the last 2 years. So I guess this might be my first question. So I know you've done a lot of audiobooks, you do all this other stuff. So, I mean, I know that you're into books and whatnot. So, how would you say that you've been keeping busy since we've entered, like, I guess, the new time, so to speak, since COVID first started? So, what's been keeping you busy besides
Well,
everything that you've just stated?
as an actor, I feel really lucky that I was doing voiceover already for many years before the shutdown happened. Because for a lot of actors, obviously, stage was gone, film was gone, everything was shut, TV was gone, everything was shut down for a while. But voiceover is the one thing that remained steady. There was a momentary lull when everybody was freaking out about everything, and then it really picked right up again. And for many of my colleagues, it got even busier. I would say for me, it stayed a little steady, and lately it's been picking up. But we're all fortunate in that so many of us already had home studios and we're used to working from home. The things that had to catch up were we used to all go into in-person auditions, or often anyway go into in-person auditions. So we've all been adjusting to and casting directors too, adjusting to how do we do this when we're not in the room together and we're just sending you our tapes and our auditions without guidance, without the person in the room saying, well, I know they're actually looking for a little bit more of this, so can you give it more of that? Can you slant it this way? And that's hard to get used to. We all miss that. I'm not speaking for myself anyway, I miss it. But it's yeah, people have just picked up and kept busy, and voiceovers overall, I would say, have gotten even busier than before the pandemic.
Yeah, especially when everybody had to build. I mean, a lot of us were lucky that we had our little home studios, like our little booths that we
Yep.
record in. And I know the scramble of like, oh my gosh, I got to put this up together. Oh no, there's this project or this audition that I have to do. I don't have a studio. Oh no, I'm used to going in person. What am I gonna do? So it's like this whole panic of just like, okay, who can I contact? So
Find a corner and
it's
put some
really,
blankets
yeah.
over my head, right?
Yeah, it's like trying to solve this puzzle. Like, okay, just let's go here, or it's all over the place. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's pretty interesting. So, yeah, let's get right into the nitty gritty here. So, I know that you've uh like you just fell in like from looking at your bio, I know that books and movies had a huge part of like developing your acting itch, that acting bug in you. So what were some of the stuff that like the media that you were introduced to that you pretty much indulged in as a kid when you were really younger in your younger actor years, and how that eventually led to the path that you're able to make a living off of. So any influences that you've indulged in as a kid that still resonates with you to this very day.
Um, I, well, as you said, as a kid, I loved books and films, and I had a lot of time on my own as a child. I have one brother, one sibling, a brother, but we were very different. So he'd do his thing and I would do my thing. And I would spend endless hours reading. I loved Nancy Drew, of course, like what young, especially female reader doesn't. So I really, as a kid, I gobbled up all the Nancy Drew books and also all the Wizard of Oz books. Uh, and I guess looking back on it, they both have spunky women taking the lead in both those books. So both those series, like whether it's Nancy Drew as the detective or Dorothy getting lost in Oz and looking out for herself and trying to find her own way, or the wonderful witches in the Oz books. If you read the whole series, there's a lot more about Glinda and the other witches, and they're all fantastic characters. Films, I have to confess, as a kid, like Saturday afternoons, I would love to watch old black and white movies, sometimes musicals, but just everything from that era. I loved old black and white films, which I still do, but I don't take time to watch as often as I used to.
Of course. Yeah, I guess that's one of the downsides of being a working actor is like once you get to the place where you're consistently working, hopefully, knock on wood, you just kind of don't really have the time to really watch or just even play games as much as you used to, which is the case with me. Or, doing a podcast like I am, so I can relate.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of, I can't imagine like adding that in, doing a podcast. That's such a lot of work. And we're entrepreneurs, we're our own business owners. And even with, if you're lucky enough to have an agent or a manager, you're your own business. So
Exactly. So, yeah, how is it like getting to attend like UCLA and later getting to go to the Oxford University, like getting that education, so to speak. So, share your school experience. Why don't you?
oh, great. UCLA at first I didn't love. I was like, what is, and that's actually how I ended up at Oxford. But in retrospect, I love all of it. UCLA is a beautiful campus. It's a little hard. See, I was a kind of undeclared major for a long time there. I just ended up becoming an English major because that's where the bulk of my credits were, which makes sense because those are the classes I would gravitate to. Um, And if you're doing that as an undergrad, you can kind of get lost there because it is such a big school with such a big student population. But um, that led me to go to Oxford for a year, where I went to St. Hilda's College. Um, Oxford, the university is made up of a bunch of separate colleges. And that was a fantastic experience. Oxford is like no place else in the world. It's such a beautiful town. And you're immediately in working with and studying with people. Like I was studying with the woman who wrote the go-to biographies on writers that I had been studying previously from a distance at UCLA. Now, having said that, I want to sound like I'm slagging UCLA. It's a great school. And like I said, in retrospect, I'm really, really glad that I went there and got to have the experience I did. It's a gorgeous campus with really good people.
What kind of sparked your interest in moving to London like to England, London, England, potato, potato? What inspired you to move there
Well,
later in
when
your
I
life?
went to Oxford, that was actually when I first started acting. I hadn't done any acting before that. And
Mhm.
while I was still at UCLA, but planning to go to Oxford for the coming year, I took a class in, actually, I remember I was walking to French class and somebody was filming their student project. And so I had to walk around like to get into the building from the other side. And I thought, "Ugh, why are these people in my way? I'm so annoyed by them." And then I thought, what is that telling you? Is there something in there that maybe you should look into? And I thought, yeah, there's something about acting that's pulling me, and I've been pushing myself away or pushing it away. So once I finally admitted, like, oh yeah, actually, maybe I'm mad because I'm jealous. Maybe I want to be one of those people. And I took a summer school course that was taught by a grad student there, Lisa Dar, amazing, fantastic actress. Um, you would know her from years ago, the Ellen Show, and from, shoot, I'm blanking on the name, but anyway, such a great actress and such a great teacher and such a fun, wonderful person. And at that point, I was like, well, yeah, this is what I want to do. But I was already planning to go to Oxford the next year. And I did as many plays as I could while I was there, but studying English. Went back to UCLA to finish my degree in English. And having spent time in England, I just knew I wanted to go back there. I knew I wanted to act. I wanted to study more. So that's how I ended up going to London to study for 2 years.
Nice. And what did you really learn? Like, what was something that you really got out from that whole experience that you carry into that's something that, um, I mean, because when all of us, when we go to do something like this, like going to London and whatnot, there's always something that we carry with us into our work, like during our respective careers. So, what is something that really stuck with you? Any piece of advice or lessons, or just, I don't know, any positive memories that really stuck with you in the years after you left England?
Well, first in England and studying there, there's so much that, I mean, yeah, there's so much that I take with me. But let's see, one of the greatest things was the voice teachers I had there were the voice coaches for the RSC. So I, to this day, use the vocal exercises I was taught then for warming up. I go to them and their lessons when I have any vocal challenges. I turn to them in their lessons when I need to work on an accent. So that gave me a really solid foundation in vocal health and using my voice. I might not always use it exactly properly, but I know the difference. I know when I'm not supported, and and I know what to do to make sure I am. And then when I came back, I had a crazy experience. I got cast the first year I was in New York in a production of Miss Julie, which was phenomenal. And it was how I got my equity card. So that happened really quickly. And it was so exciting to be in New York doing classical theater and doing such a great, really gutsy emotional play and a gutsy emotional role, and to get my equity card from it.
Nice. So, how is it like getting to perform in the Covent
Oh,
Garden?
Covent Garden.
Covent Garden, yeah.
Covent Garden is great. First of all, it's just a wonderful place, and there's a museum there, and in the basement there's a theater. It's a theater museum. I don't remember the museum that well now, but the school I was at did shows in that theater. And it was a little intimidating because it's England and it's English theater, but really exciting. And I did a Chekhov play and a contemporary play, and both were fabulous.
Yeah. So after returning to America, you've been triple that threat. Like you've been acting, you've been writing, creating stuff, which a lot of us do anyway. So let's talk about your hobbies real quick. So yeah, I know that you've also are just really fond of gardens, sewing, knitting. Yeah,
I know,
doing all of this other
I'm so
stuff.
domestic. I'm very domestic. I'm like, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
fine sitting at home because I'll always have something to do. I do love knitting and sewing and all those things. I love baking. And my partner, who is Israeli, has uh, taken a big plot of land in the back of our house here, and it was a neglected plot of land that just for decades nobody had done anything with, and he was like, I'm going in there, and he has turned it into a mini farm. So I do get to spend a lot of time in a really great garden as well.
so would you consider yourself as like an introvert or more extroverted? Like
Oh,
you love,
definitely introvert, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah,
welcome to the introvert club.
so
Word up,
many
represent.
so many actors, yeah, which I
Yeah,
think makes
so many
sense.
of us.
We you have to really go inside in order to, I don't know if you find this, but I find this, you have to go inside in order to really express stories or bring stories through you. And I think, not that extroverts can't do that, of course they can, but introverts maybe have more immediate inclination to do that or more time to do that because we're going to be comfortable spending time on our own.
Yeah. So I was looking at some of your credits and you've done your fair share of film, but for TV, I gotta mention this for television because you were on two crime-related shows, Crime to Remember, and one of my favorite shows, Law and Order. So I wanted to ask you, how was it like getting to work on these two shows? And particularly, how did you get to, I guess, guest star on such a big series like the Special Victims Unit in New York?
First of all, they were both great experiences. Working on any Law and Order show is amazing. They
Yeah,
are,
my family loves Law and Order, so I had to ask this question.
well, it's a, everybody on that set is working at the very top of their game. They are the best. They have to be. They're working like, it's crazy what they accomplish in such a short amount of time because they have a lot of shows in their season, a lot of episodes in their season, and they're kind of cranking them out, but doing them with, it's such high quality. It's like a well-oiled machine on that set, and everybody is still, even working under that pressure, is kind and thoughtful and goes out of their way to be welcoming into the actors who might be showing up for just a day, for half a day, for whatever, there's such a turnover of um, actors on those episodic shows, and everybody on that set is incredibly kind. I got it by auditioning. I auditioned for it. I actually auditioned for the first time I auditioned for SVU. I got a call back, and then I wasn't cast. And then like a week or 2 weeks later, I got called in for the role I did get cast in. And then subsequently, I saw the first role that I had not been cast in on TV, and I saw, who they had cast, and it was like, oh, of course, because they just went in a totally different direction. It wasn't like me at all. Like it's so interesting when you see that happen. You start to take a lot of pressure off yourself when you're auditioning, thinking like, oh my gosh, am I going to get it? Am I right for blah, 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 blah. You don't know. And then when you see who actually gets cast sometimes in something you didn't get cast for, it's like, well, of course I wasn't going to get cast in that. So no big deal. The point is, in this case, I met people, I met the casting director, I met the directors, and they thought, yeah, let's bring her back for something else. And A Crime to Remember, the most fun thing about that show for me was that was a period piece. It was set in the late 50s, early 60s. So it was really fun. All the costumes and the cars and the hairstyles and everything. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you've also done video games, anime. So I actually do want to mention this one show. Actually, before I do, so what actually got you, what do you remember was the first anime that you've actually worked on?
The first anime that I worked on was Captain Tyler.
Yes, that's the one. So that was actually how I first, because I was watching the dub. I mean, I do watch anime sub and dub, but for this one, I'm gonna say this, I think I kind of preferred the dub because it was so good. That was actually one of the shows that was, as far as I know, it had a really big all-star cast in there. And then you played a character who was, okay, wow, her name is blanking. It was Harumi, and that was actually the role that actually introduced me to your work. And I'm like, oh, she's really good. I mean, of course, the rest of the cast was excellent. I mean, Veronica Taylor, Rachel Willis, and of course, Crispin Freeman as Captain Tyler, just big names in anime. So what would you like working on a show like Captain Tyler and then just it kind of pretty much launched your career as a voiceover artist. So how is it like working on a show that has gained such a cult following over the years and that just pretty much led you to more work later down the line and your experience working on the show in general?
It's something funny because you don't know at the time, right? You're just
Yep.
like, oh, this is fun. This is a good show. And I actually didn't know, I had no awareness at all of anime at the time. Like I didn't know
Okay.
what the genre was. So, and even the way I was cast was so accidental. Like it was through a friend of a friend. I didn't know that. I remember going into audition and the direct, like everybody in the room, the director, they were all like, they all knew each other. They're all chatting. And then the director gets to me and is like, how do I know you? I'm like, I don't think I do know. I don't know. And he says, well, all I know is I got your name and number on a cocktail napkin. And I thought, well, that's not good. I don't know what that means. But it turned out he was also a musician. And I was working in the music industry at the time. We had a mutual friend who had told him, oh, you're casting these shows, you should check out my friend Carol. So that's how I got into that audition. And then when I got cast in that, once you're working on the show, you don't see any other actors. You don't meet the other actors because you're all like recording, solo. But you do get to know the directors and you do get to know the engineers, and they are great. They're great people. And once they know you and you know them, like you said, yeah, then you're like, oh, we should have Carol for this role. She could do blah, blah, blah. So that did kind of start a trend of getting to work in anime.
So it just kind of snowballed from there pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I also love how you were in a lot of different shows that were basically recorded in New York. I know that they do record some anime, but most of the big hubs, like the big spots, are usually like in LA or Texas. And I know that New York still does have a teleroster, but I know that most of the shows that they're doing now are usually like it's usually done in LA or like I said, Texas, like at least in those two areas, and at least in America, at least. There's also Canada too. Yeah.
There is a studio here that does well, there are a couple, there are a few. There's NYAV Post. There's my friend Joe DeGiorgi has a studio where that's the last anime I did a couple of, oh, actually, you know how COVID makes time weird? It must have been before COVID. So it's probably 3 years since I did the last, since the last thing I worked on. And that would have been in Joe's studio, Headline Sound.
Yeah. I also love how, I mean, pretty much everyone that I know, like at least in the New York scene, they've done Pokemon, which is another huge show. So, like, it's like you mentioned before, like most of these properties and shows, you wouldn't even know that they would literally just explode. And then years later, they're just still highly regarded and beloved to this very day. And
Yeah.
as a Pokemon fan myself, I can certainly attest that like there was a time where like it was everywhere. Like I would go to a store and there's plushies, there's action figures, there's costumes, backpacks. It was a
Mhm.
merchandise juggernaut. And it's really huge. It's big. So the characters that you played on the show, they were like so I also gotta ask, like, do you think that like when it comes to playing different characters in one project, do you
Yeah.
find it's a skill that you kind of adapted to? It just kind of came, it just flowed naturally to you, or were there still like some learning steps or curves that you have to you encountered along the way when it comes to playing characters that were different from one another and try not to make them sound too similar to this other character you played. Is that a challenge or does that come naturally to you?
I That is such a great question, and I think it's actually one of the things I love best about anime is that because there's not a lot of preparation, you don't get this. Well, generally speaking, you don't get the script in advance. You get cast, you show up to record. The script is there, the screen is there. They play the video, and you go. And when you have that kind of situation, you don't have time to edit yourself. You don't have time to second guess yourself. You have to just jump and go with the best you can bring to the moment. And that is so liberating. And so many great things can happen. And I think it especially happens in the circumstance you're talking about, where, like, okay, you've wrapped your main character for the day. And then, oh, by the way, we want to get, we have a little boy in this scene. And then we have a ticket seller in that scene. And I have another woman over here who's just in one scene. Can you do some voices for these? Sure. And if you do it, if you commit yourself to it, if you're free, if you've done your warm-ups so that you're open and your instrument is ready, and you just commit yourself to it and just go, great things happen. Magic absolutely happens. And that's one of my favorite things about having worked in anime.
Yeah. And you could talk about how you were the lead singer for the musical group Primrose Hill and you had, appearances at Losers Lounge and just you could just talk about your career as a singer if you like and how that whole thing came to be.
That happened. Yeah, also, it feels like it happened by accident, but
Yeah.
it was a great period of my life. There's nothing like, I think there's nothing like being in a band. It's a very special bond that you build with people. Having gigs to play, having regular rehearsal schedules, knowing that you're going to show up for each other once, twice, three times a week and make music together is the best. It's really the best. And can make friendships that last a really long time. I was just texting this morning with one of my friends from Primrose Hill, the guitar player from Primrose Hill, who I've stayed friends with, ever since.
Yeah. And as far as audiobooks go, like I know because there's a lot of areas and a lot of different voiceover avenues that actors, because they pretty much do juggle, like they have many cards up their sleeves. So for audiobooks in particular, what do you enjoy the most and what is the most challenging aspect? Like the pros and cons of doing audiobooks.
Um, I love, well, as this interview started talking about, me as a kid spending hours and hours and hours reading books, it's sort of like what I would probably do anyway. I'd spend the afternoon sitting around reading a book if I could. And so sitting in the booth and reading it out loud and sharing it in a sense with someone else is a natural for me. So that's one of the reasons I like it so much. I mean, there's not much more. If as an actor, you come to it because you believe in the power of storytelling and that storytelling is healing, which I do, then there's not much of a more pure form of it than actually sitting and telling a story, bringing it to life for the listener. On the flip side, it's a challenge and it can be really draining. I mean, you do have to be able to sustain. It's not like going in and doing a 30-second ad or a 60-second ad where, you might spend 30 minutes or an hour or whatever in the studio doing a session, but then you're done. Well, you got to do, if you have to do a 6-hour book, you're going to be in the studio for at least 12 hours, more than that, plus your prep beforehand. So it is a very, it's a time heavy facet of, it's a lot to make an audiobook. Like I said, I really enjoy it, so it works for me, but it can be tough. And also you can kind of go for too long in the booth and realize at some point you realize like, whoa, I'm just really loopy right now. I actually have to stop because I'm not connecting anymore.
So, speaking of time, we only have about like 6 minutes or so left. So, what are some upcoming projects that you'd love to self-promote or share that, if it's not under NDA or anything, like any upcoming just projects that we can expect to see from Miss Carol?
I have a couple of audiobooks coming out shortly. One is, to me, it was fascinating. If you're interested in health, if you're interested in cutting edge health, if you're interested in diet, this is a book called Starving to Heal in Siberia. And it's about fasting and how that affects the body. And it's a first person account of someone who transformed her life by doing this, saved herself from chronic Lyme disease. And it's absolutely fascinating. I have another couple of books coming out, and I'm also going to be working on a short film later this month that I'm very excited, actually later next month, August, we're still July, that I'm very excited about. And my biggest project lately, which is not quite finished, but I will talk about it, is I've been working on a book for a number of years, writing a novel based on my partner's true story as an Israeli undercover operative and his time doing that in Europe and Africa and the Middle East. And we have turned it into a novel. And I am getting very close to having that done and getting ready to look for an agent. So that's what I'm working
Nice. Do you have any last pieces of advice, any words that you'd like to share, any wisdom you'd like to bestow to the audience out there before we go on our little merry ways?
on. Oh gosh. Well, first of all,
Acting, life, just anything, general. Yeah.
first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for reaching out to me and asking me to do this. It's been such a pleasure meeting you and talking with you. And
Likewise.
for actors out there, I'm someone who came to it late in life. Like a lot of people would say that, when I decided to be an actor was kind of already too late because I was in college. So one thing is it's never too late. And secondly, just really, really, really take time to listen to yourself. Listen to yourself in life and in work and in acting. Be in touch with yourself, listen to yourself, trust your knowing, and you will find wonderful adventures by doing that.
Yeah. Would you like to do an outro for the podcast?
Oh, sure. Uh,
Yeah. So basically what I do is actors usually say, hi, my name is Carol. I'd say the name, and then I do this and this and this, and you're watching or listening to the Station Square podcast.
all right.
Whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Carol Jacobanis. I'm an actor doing voiceover, film, and stage, and you're listening to the Station Square podcast.
Awesome. First take is always the best take. So yeah, do you have like any final farewells or I don't know, anything quirky that you want to say or just, yeah.
Quirky, but thanks for listening. And if you're listening in sort of real time, then stay cool.
Yeah, please do. So yeah, thank you very much for anybody who's stuck around to the very end. This is definitely one of my shorter ones, but we managed to get we had a nice little conversation. So if you guys want to check out more episodes, feel free to follow me on social media. This will be up on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, wherever else I'm on. And until next time, take it easy, y'all, and I'll see you next time. And to anybody that is attending the San Diego Comic-Con this weekend, stay safe, stay healthy, and remember, stay cool. Love you guys. Bye. Adios, amigos. Peace.